G'day and welcome to Choosing Your Uni. I'm Rob Malicki coming to you from Garrigouland in Sydney today. And my guest is Ashleigh Smith, who studies at Curtin University doing Bachelor of Laws and International Relations. Very excited to have her with you. Ashleigh, thanks for joining me. How good is this?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great. It's because we had a bit of a fail, didn't we? I stuffed up my time zones. I forgot that
Oh,
Perth has
yeah.
3 hours difference from Sydney. Go figure. So if you're an international student and you're watching this, Australia is a very large country. We've got like three major time zones.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's really nice to actually connect. And so you're studying law and international relations at Curtin. Love the university. Is there something that surprised you about that degree or those degrees when you started?
For me, it was the international relations component of my degree that surprised me. I kind of had a base understanding of what law would entail. Very heavy content, lots of reading. But for me, international relations was something I kind of got into because I was interested in Australian politics, but I didn't really understand just how broad it was, especially when you're applying all these different theories of realism, liberalism, constructivism, even like feminist international relation theories to explain how states interact with each other within the international system. So I found that really, really interesting, and particularly how it kind of drew me into the Asia Pacific region in particular.
And I know we're going to talk a lot more about the Asia Pacific. Who would be so given that experience, the sort of surprise, who do you think would be well suited to studying IR?
Honestly, I think anyone who has an interest in either politics, international affairs, even history, I find it really interesting how a country's history kind of impacts on their domestic and international policies today. That's really interesting if you have an interest within like a particular region. So obviously the Asia Pacific, the European Union, even the US as a global hegemon in our international order, and now with China rising up to compete. So there's so many different areas of interest that could attract you into international relations.
What got you interested in politics to begin with?
I studied just politics and law in high school, so it was more the Australian domestic politics that interested me, and Curtin didn't offer like domestic politics as a degree, so I chose international relations as the next best thing, and I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so, can you think back, like when you're in high school, what made you want to get into politics to begin, or even law for that matter?
I think it was year 10 when we started first kind of learning about Australia's political system and institutions. And I don't know, it was something just kind of clicked in me. I was like, yeah, this is what I'm really interested in. I had just found it really cool. I memorized like sections of the Constitution and all of our little like the nitty gritty stuff really is my forte, I think. And I think that's why I like law as well, because it's very much about the details and solving problems and stuff. So yeah, that's probably what attracted me the most.
I really love the detail of this stuff. You know, how people end up finding that thing that really lights them up. Do you remember exactly what it was? Was there a moment, or was it just a kind of a bit of an overall feeling after finishing a, course? Or was there literally a moment where you're just like, this is really cool shit?
I think it was definitely, I think it was year 10 because we kind of went through the different like humanities subjects. So we had geography, history, politics, and economics. And politics just really grabbed me. I think it was when we were talking about constitutional monarchies and our parliamentary system. And for some people, it's just like, oh my gosh, like they wouldn't want to know about it at all. But it was just, I was like, yeah, this is cool. And as I went into year 11, learning about, the different system in China and how their governments run, I was like, well, this it has like an impact, but it seems so far away from everything. But it kind of permeates our daily life in a way that we don't understand unless we've kind of learnt about it.
It's so cool hearing you talk about that. I remember being at uni I can't remember if it was first or second year, and we were doing a class on natural hazards. They were talking about hurricanes. And I had that moment where I suddenly realized, oh my God, like people do this for a job. People study this for a job. And it was so fascinating, that class. And that was the moment for me when suddenly I realized, wow, like you can literally work in anything. You can literally study anything and make a career out of anything. So you're pretty lucky to have landed on that so early. What advice would you have for somebody
Yeah.
who maybe hasn't found that yet, haven't found that sort of thing that lights them up?
I think if you give everything a crack, to be honest, I think you can't restrict yourself. I know for my ATAR subjects, they were very broad. I had chemistry, Japanese, politics, we had to do religion at school, English, math. So I think if you try diversify what you're doing to really get a grasp of all the different things, and I think it's okay to not get it at the start. I've got one of my friends who started psychology, realized it was not for her, and then 2 years later she decided to do primary school teaching, and now she's
Nice.
loving it. And I think it's okay to take your time with it. There's no rush. And for me, I was thinking of doing teaching as well. So you just kind of try different things, and I think eventually you'll land on something that kind of, yeah, lights a spark in you.
It's funny, isn't it? It's like some people might look at that and think that they've wasted 2 years, whereas I kind of
Yeah,
look at that and say, thank God you didn't waste 2 or 3 decades doing something that you didn't really enjoy. In fact, you actually found something that you really love for a relatively
definitely.
minimal investment of a couple of years of effort.
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 2 years is nothing.
No, very much not. And so when it came to actually choosing an institution, what made you choose Curtin? Were you considering other unis as well?
I was, yeah. I was initially considering Notre Dame. It's in Fremantle, and I live in Fremantle, so I thought, oh, it'd be really great. I know the area. I could just catch the bus. It would be really easy. But I think what really made me consider Curtin was their scholarships. I was quite a driven high school student, so I was looking for scholarships to help me out. And Curtin has a really, I think, out of all the universities, I would say that Curtin offers the best scholarship program in terms of what benefits you get. So I applied for the Julia Gillard Women in Leadership Scholarship, thinking that, I wouldn't get it. I'd just toss my hat in the contest, and I've received it, luckily, which I'm very grateful for. And now I have full tuition paid, and I get $6,000 towards an international experience. So I
Holy,
think the scholarship aspect,
that's a big deal.
yeah, which is very, very lucky. I didn't find the other universities in Western Australia kind of offer the same programs, and it's been wonderful. It's been really great for leadership development, professional development. They offer so much support within that program, and you have opportunity to meet a lot of like-minded people as well.
So tell me more about that scholarship program. Do you actually get to meet her at some point?
Yeah, so I had a Zoom call with her in my first semester at university, which was incredible. Yeah, it was a very surreal moment. I was talking to her and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in my head I was going, I'm talking to Julia Gillard right now about what I'm studying and stuff. This is so crazy.
That's cool.
It was a very cool experience.
That's super cool. So for those watching, if you're maybe from overseas, Julia Gillard is former Australian Prime Minister, first female Prime Minister of Australia, and the first
Yeah.
female to win an Australian federal election as well, and just a superhuman being by all accounts. She's kicking butt.
Yeah,
Like
she was amazing.
I just love seeing what she's doing on the world stage now with her passions for education and gender equality and the like. She's really just doing great stuff.
Yeah,
Good for
she
you.
is. Yeah, that was quite cool.
Why do you think you won the scholarship?
Well, they rang me up out of the blue and said, "Oh, you've received the Julia Gillard Women in Leadership Scholarship." Out of I think there were 35 applicants. They said that my essay was the best, so that's what they based it off. And my essay, I had to say what I thought leadership was,
Nice.
and if I were to go to Curtin, what I would do to develop my leadership skills. So I guess for me, what I kind of said in my essay, that for me, leadership is about collaboration. It's not a dictatorship. I think the mark of a good leader is not their own achievements, but actually the achievements of the people that they're leading, really. And I think humility in leadership is also really important. Understanding that you're not better than anyone and no one else is better than you. You're all on an equal footing.
What sort of things are you doing at Curtin that give you more of that sort of experience?
I'm the Curtin Volunteers is a really great organisation that you can get involved in with volunteering, and as part of that, they also have leader like roles. So I'm the program leader for the red carpet cinema program, which helps, not helps, we basically just put on social events for young people with disabilities, and it's a really fun night. I don't even feel, to be honest, like I'm being a leader.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's great fun. And then Curtin also offers a bunch of workshops to kind of understand your own values, how that impacts your leadership style, to develop your leadership. And within my scholarship program, we also run professional development sessions with the other people within the scholarship. So it's interesting to kind of talk with them about all these ideas of what leadership means, and it kind of develops, I don't know, develops your capabilities and understanding of what a leadership means, whilst also, being able to use those ideas in, well, for me, my volunteering experience. Yeah, to be a leader, I guess.
More broadly, what's it like studying at Curtin?
I really like it. The campus is lovely. The staff are really supportive, and I didn't really consider Curtin like properly when I was at high school. I had this very big expectation that I'd go to Notre Dame because they always talked about how their pastoral care was really good. But I think Curtin just has so much on offer with volunteering, clubs, professional development, anything that you kind of want to get involved in. Curtin kind of provides all these different things, so it's really cool. I think it's a great university, and I like the kind of values behind it of serving the community and trying to be a leader within your industry. I think it's really cool.
Must admit, I love the campus. I think I was first at Curtin 15 years ago, and just kind of walking around. Oh yeah, just a fairly standard university, and then coming back 7 or 8 years ago, and hammock hotel, beanbags on the lawn, food trucks. The murals were all new from the previous time I'd come. I just love the
Yeah.
vibe of the place. It seems like it's just awesome for students.
Yeah, it's really, they've just done up the library as well. Before it was kind of like this concrete
Mm,
prison almost, and it was quite unpleasant to study in. But now there's so much natural light, open space. They've got 3D
oh,
printers and
cool.
all these crafts that you can just use for free. It's really
Wow.
cool. Yeah, they've done it up very well.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite unique, I feel, that the uni obviously does a lot of research and has some incredible academic strengths, but have also really doubled down on the student experience, just trying to make sure that students have an amazing experience on campus, which I love. It's
Yeah, I
kind of
think so.
50% of uni, isn't it? Half of it's academic classes, but then half of it's all the other good stuff that you can do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And aside, I was traveling around Australia during COVID for 18 months with my family. We ended up staying in Fremantle for 2.5 months. The kids,
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
kids were in school at Beaconsfield,
Oh,
Beaconsfield
lovely.
Primary. So very near and dear to my heart. Yeah, spent plenty of time swimming down at South Beach, and
Yeah, I love it down there. It's beautiful.
super good place.
Yeah, great vibes.
And Perth in general, I think if I were coming from overseas, for example, to study, I think most people think about Sydney and Melbourne just because they're kind of big famous places. But to me, Perth and Brisbane as well are my two favourite student flavoured towns.
Oh,
Just
really?
for lifestyle, like lifestyle is a bit more relaxed than in places like Sydney and Melbourne. People
Yeah.
seem more friendly. Like genuinely, people seem more
That's
friendly.
interesting.
And then yeah, just the outdoors is incredible. Cost of living is a bit lower than Sydney and Melbourne, and the travel up and down the coast, up the west coast is
Yeah,
bananas. So
it is beautiful.
super good,
Beautiful country.
super good place to live. So what else? What other sorts of things have you been involved in while you've been there?
I'm involved with the Curtin International Relations Society.
Yep.
So before, a couple of years ago, it was quite a small club and not very well known. And I think since it was under new leadership, it's really come into its own. It's got really good faculty connections. It's got great connections actually with now international diplomats, people within the DFAT office. So we've tried to provide a range of activities for people to get involved in, which we called it Futures in IR. So kind
Nice.
of the different pathways that you could go down when you're in international relations. So working at DFAT, going down the academia route. I think there was something else. I can't remember what we did, but it's been really fun to get involved with. We also have like weekly hangouts that people kind of just get together and talk about international affairs and stuff. So that's been really cool.
We might not end up using this. Really curious about your opinion on the kind of current state of things. The tension with China, AUKUS. This is maybe a bit too niche for like a general audience, but fascinating. Like, what's talking in classes and stuff like? Must be an amazing time to be unpacking some of these huge geopolitical and defence issues.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think since I've been at university, which I'm in my third year now, I think for most of my international relations classes, the focus has been on this rising China and the geopolitical competition between the US and China, and then where that kind of leaves Australia. And the thing I love about international relations actually is that there's no right or wrong answer. Like with law, it's very much, this is a problem and this is how you solve it. Well, with that, whereas international relations is really looking at all the different angles, being a devil's advocate for, a view that might otherwise be considered as not viable. It's really cool and being able to apply all these different theories. So for me, I think it's important for for Australia to keep the conversation with China going. They're a huge economic partner of Australia. But when it comes to security reasons, obviously we want to be more aligned with the US. So I think I've been reading an article about the importance of the US of coexisting with China, which doesn't necessarily mean conceding to China on all their issues, but kind of engaging in this competition in a strategic way that kind of is favorable for US terms. So when it comes to Australia, I think we kind of need to do the same thing. China's not going anywhere. And I think when people think of the US and China, they immediately go back to the Cold War when it was this great power rivalry of the Soviet Union and the US. And I think people are like, oh yeah, the Soviet Union kind of collapsed. The same thing will probably happen with China. But I think that's not really a viable option. And also we're so integrated now within the economy that it doesn't make sense to kind of try to take China down. Like everyone's still benefiting from them being an economic superpower. So it's very much a juggling game, I think. I'm not too familiar with AUKUS, so I won't say too much on that, I don't think. But yeah, when it comes to security, I think the Quad is very important for Australian security, and also engaging with Indonesia and our neighbours really, because yeah, we have the US, but also they're so far away that it's important to kind of build those relationships with our neighbours in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, good pickups. Fascinating. We've talked a lot about IR. What about the law side of things?
The law side of things, I really like it.
Yeah. Why?
That's a good question. I had contracts last semester, which I think is kind of an area that I'm pretty interested in. At first, I thought it was going to be really boring, but I don't know. There was just something about it. Like it just really clicked for me. It's very logical with how you apply the law and how you problem solve. That it's you don't have to delve too much into huge issues. In saying that, I still have a year and a half left of law, so I haven't done too many law units.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of coming up later. So I've more done contracts and torts, and then kind of more philosophical units with how, I guess, Indigenous social justice issues and how the law kind of impacts and shapes those issues as well. So that was quite interesting. Yeah, I don't know why law is really appealing to me. I work as a law clerk for a tax
Mm-hmm.
lawyer, and whilst tax isn't something I would want to get into, it's just the nitty-gritty details and all these principles that you can apply to real life situations, I just find really interesting.
Do you have a sense yet about whether you might pursue the IR side more than the law side? Or are you just still an open book on those?
I think I'm still an open book. At the moment, I'm kind of leading towards maybe heading down the DFAT route,
Mm-hmm.
applying for the DFAT graduate program, but that's because I'm in my final year of international relations right now, so that's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I think maybe next year, once I'm only doing law, I might change my mind.
Oh, you know what? I've got a. I mean, you guys probably deal with heaps of this stuff, but there's this book I just read, The Consul by Ian Kemish, who's former High Commissioner Ambassador, Australian Ambassador. Fascinating read, like talks a bit about the Indo-Pacific and a lot of Australia's engagement and major consular issues that we've had over the last 2 decades.
Oh, awesome.
Highly recommended. Yeah, I'll send it to you if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll
finished
give it a
reading
read. Sounds great.
Yeah, a great read for anybody that's interested in perhaps going into the DFAT side of things. He really unpacks what it's like to be working at the coalface, because consular issues are now a huge part of Australia's foreign service responsibilities. Way more since 9/11, since early 2000s than previously. Before that, Australians were more not on their own, but didn't have as much hand-holding overseas. And it's presented quite a large problem for the Australian government, because they would like Australians to be better insured and more independent, rather than coming into consulates and embassies asking for support for fairly trivial things, which is very expensive to run. Very, very expensive to run. So fascinating to get under the hood of that. So I'll send you that. My guest today has been Ashleigh Smith from Curtin University. She's studying Bachelor of Laws and Bachelor of International Relations, and is a recipient of the Australian Government's new Colombo Plan Scholarship, which is the biggest scholarship out there. If you're an Australian uni student, that's the one that you really want to be aiming for. More independent info and advice, find it on choosingyouruni.com. Ashleigh, it's been super nice to connect with you, and I'm really fascinated to chat again, maybe in 18 months' time. How long are you going for?
6
Are you going
months.
for 12 months? 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Talk again in 6 months after your overseas study experience in Japan and in Singapore.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much for having me. It was great having a chat. I really, really enjoyed my first podcast experience.
Good on you.